Shalom, shalom. Today we start a new book, 2 Kings. As always, we'll do 5 chapters. We'll get right into it. And Moab revolted against Israel, and after the death of Ahab, and Ahaziah fell through the lattice of his upper room in Shomeron, and was injured, and sent messengers, and said to them, Go, inquire of Baal-zebub, the mighty one of Ekron, if I shall recover from this injury. It's like we can never get it right. We can't go ask God. We gotta go ask somebody else. Anyway. But a messenger of Yahweh spoke to Elijah the Tishbite, Rise up, go up to meet the messengers of the sovereign of Shomeron, and say to them, It is because there is no Elohim in Israel that you are going to inquire of Baal-zebub, the mighty one of Ekron? So therefore, thus said Yahweh, You are not going to get out of the bed to which you have gone up, for you shall certainly die. And Elijah went. And the messengers returned to him, and he said to them, Why have you come back? And they said to him, A man came up to meet us, and said to us, Go, return to the sovereign who sent you, and say to him, Thus said Yahweh, It is because there is no Elohim in Israel that you are sending to inquire of Baal-zebub, the mighty one of Ekron? Therefore you are not going to get up out of the bed to which you have gone up, for you shall certainly die. All the quotations. And he said to them, What was the man like who came up to meet you and spoke to you these words? And they answered him, He was a hairy man, and wore a leather girdle around his waist. And he said, It is Elijah the Tishbite. And he sent them to him. There you go. I'm skipping a whole word. That's my problem. He then sent to him a captain of 50 with his 50 men. And he went up to him, and see, he was sitting on the top of a hill. And he spoke to him, Man of Elohim, the sovereign has said, Come down. And Elijah answered and said to the captain of 50, And if I am a man of Elohim, let fire come down from the heavens and consume you and your 50. Man. That's the wrong dude to talk to. And fire came down from the heavens and consumed him and his 50. Yeah, I bet. He then sent another captain of 50 with his 50 men, so the king. And he answered and said to him, Man of Elohim, this is what the sovereign said. Come down at once. Maybe they didn't know what happened to the first 51. And Elijah answered and said to them, If I am a man of Elohim, let fire come down from the heavens and consume you and your 50 men. And a fire of Elohim came down from the heavens and consumed him and his 50 men. And again he sent a third captain of 50 with his 50 men. And the third captain of 50 went up and came and fell on his knees before Elijah and pleaded with him and said to him, Man of Elohim, please let my life and the life of these 50 servants of yours be precious in your eyes. See, fire has come down from the heavens and burned up the first 2 captains of 50s with their 50s. But let my life be precious in your eyes. And the messenger of Yahweh said to Elijah, Go down with him, do not be afraid of him. So he rose up and went down with him to the sovereign, and spoke to him, Thus said Yahweh, because you have sent messengers to inquire of Baal-zebub, the mighty one of Ekron, it is because there is no Elohim in Israel to inquire of his word. Therefore you are not going to get up out of the bed to which you have gone up, for you shall certainly die. And he died, according to the word of Yahweh which Elijah had spoken. And Jeroham reigned in his place in the 2nd year of Jeroham, son of Jehoshaphat, sovereign of Judah, for he had no son. Okay, I think I'm understanding. But, the king, whatever his name is, Ahaziah, didn't have a son. And the rest of the acts of Ahaziah, which he did, are they not written in the book of annals of the sovereign of Israel. And it came to be, when Yahuwah was to take up Elijah to the heavens by a whirlwind, that Elijah went to Elisha from Gilgal. And Elijah said to Elisha, "Please remain here, for Yahuwah has sent me on to Bethel." And Elisha said, "As Yahuwah lives, and as your being lives, I did not leave you." And they went down to Bethel. And the sons of the prophet who were at Bethel came out to Elisha and said to him, "Do you not know that Yahuwah is taking away your master from your head?" And he said, "I also know. Be silent." And Elijah said to him, "Elisha, please remain here, for Yahuwah has sent me on to Jericho." And he said, "As Yahuwah lives, and as your being lives, I do not leave you." And he came to Jericho. And the sons of the prophets who were at Jericho came to Elisha and said to him, "Do you know that Yahuwah is taking away your master from over you today?" And he said, "I also know. Be silent." And Elijah said to him, "Please remain here, for Yahuwah has sent me on to the Jordan." And he said, "As Yahuwah lives, and as your being lives, I do not leave you." And the two of them went on. And 50 men of the sons of the prophets went and stood facing them at a distance, while the two of them stood at the Jordan. And Elijah took his mantle and rolled it up and struck the water, and it was divided this way and that, so that the two of them passed over on dry ground. And it came to be, when they had passed over, that Elijah said to Elisha, "Ask what I am to do for you before I am taken away from you." And Elisha said, Please let a double portion of your spirit be upon me." And he said, "You have made it hard to ask. Yet if you see me when I am taken from you, it is yours. But if not, it is not." And it came to be, as they continued on and spoke, that see, a chariot of fire with horses of fire, which separated the two of them. And Elijah went up with a whirlwind into the heavens. And Elisha saw and cried out, my father, the chariot of Israel and its horsemen." And he saw him no more. And he took hold of his garments and tore them in two pieces. And he took up the mantle of Elijah that had fallen from him, and went back and stood on the bank of the Jordan. And he took the mantle of Elijah that had fallen from him, and struck the water, and said, "Where is Yahuwah Elohim of Elijah?" And he struck the water, and it was divided this way and that, and Elisha passed over. And when the sons of the prophets who were from Jericho saw him, they said, "The spirit of Elijah rests on Elisha." And they came to meet him, and bowed to the ground before him. And they said to him, "Look, there are 50 strong men with your servants. Please let them go and search for your master, lest the spirit of Yahweh has taken him up and cast him upon some mountain or into the valley." And he said, "Send no one." But they pressed upon him until he was ashamed. And he said, "Send." So they sent 50 men, and they searched for 3 days, but did not find him. He already knew. And they returned to him, for he remained in Jericho, and said to them, "Did I not say to you, do not go?" And the men of the city said to Elisha, yeah, that's probably better. "Look, the site of this city is good, as my master sees, but the waters are spoiled, and the soil barren." And he said, "Bring me a new bowl, and put salt in it." And they brought it to him. And he went out to the source of the water, and threw salt in there, and said, "Thus said Yahuwah, I have healed this water. No longer shall death or barrenness come from it." Or Aeneas come from, yeah. I don't know what that is. If you know what that is, let me know. And the waters were healed to this day, according to the word of Elisha, which he spoke. And he went up from there to Bethel. And as he was going away, some youths came from the city and mocked him, and said to him, "Go up, bald head! Go up, bald head!" And he turned around and looked at them, and pronounced a curse on them in the name of Yahuwah. And 2 female bears came out of the forest, and tore to pieces 42 of the youths. Wow. And from there he went to Mount Carmel, and from there he returned to Shomerome. Why would he be bald? Probably because he's mourning over his master. There's also a possibility that he did a Nazirite vow. Probably did a Nazirite vow, honestly. But yeah, anyway, I've also been thinking about this whole concept too as well. Like we always see the prophets, like they'll just turn around and be like, "Thus says Yahuwah, you're not making it home today." The end. And then a bear comes out and attacks them. Obviously, I don't want to say things like that, but it's just like sometimes people need to have a little fear and respect. Anyway, and Jehoram, son of Ahab, began to reign over Israel at Shomeron in the 18th year of Jehoshaphat, sovereign of Judah, and reigned 12 years. And he did evil in the eyes of Yahuwah, but not like his father and mother, for he removed the statue of Baal which his father had made. But he clung to the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, who had made Israel sin. He did not turn away from them. And Mesha, sovereign of Moab, was a sheep breeder, and he paid the sovereign of Israel 100,000 lambs of the wool of 100,000 rams. Okay, that's 200,000 sheepies. And it came to be, when Ahab died, that the sovereign of Moab revolted against the sovereign of Israel. And the sovereign Jehoram went out of Shomeron at the time and mustered all Israel. And he went and sent to Jehoshaphat, sovereign of Judah, saying, "The sovereign of Moab has revolted against me. Do you go with me to fight against Moab?" And he said, "I go up. I am as you are, my people as your people, my horses as your horses." And he said, "Which way do we go up?" And he said, "By way of the wilderness of Edom." And the sovereign of Israel went, and the sovereign of Judah, and the sovereign of Edom. That and is just throwing me for a loop. Sorry. And the sovereign of Israel went, and the sovereign of Judah, and the sovereign of Edom, and went round a journey of 7 days. And there was no water for the army, nor for the cattle that followed them. And the sovereign of Israel said, What? Has Yahuwah called these 3 sovereigns to give them into the hand of Moab? And Jehoshaphat said, Is there no prophet of Yahuwah here? Then let us inquire of Yahuwah through him. One of the servants of the sovereign of Israel then answered and said, Elisha, son of Shaphat, is here, who poured water out on the hands of Elijah. And Jehoshaphat said, The word of Yahuwah is with him. And the sovereign of Israel and Jehoshaphat and the sovereign of Edom went down to him. And Elisha said to the sovereign of Israel, What have I to do with you? Go to the prophets of your father, to the prophets of your mother. And the sovereign of Israel said to him, No, for Yahuwah has called these 3 sovereigns to give them into the hand of Moab. Well, listen here, if you already know. And Elijah said, As Yahuwah of hosts lives, before whom I stand, if it were not that I regarded the presence of Jehoshaphat, sovereign of Judah, I would not look at you, nor see you. And now bring me a harpist. And it came to be, when the harpist played, that the hand of Yahuwah came upon him. And he said, Thus said Yahuwah, Make this wadi ditches. For thus said Yahuwah, You are not going to see wind nor rain, yet the wadi is to be filled with water, so that you, your cattle, and your beasts shall drink. And this shall be but a light matter in the eyes of Yahuwah, and he shall give Moab into your hand. Oh wow, holy cow. Wow. We're not all about to get killed. That we can win this. And he's going to give us water. And you shall strike every walled city and every choice city, and shall cut down every good tree, and stop up every fountain of water, and ruin every good piece of land with stones. And it came to be in the morning, when the grain offering was offered, that see, water came by way of Edom, and the land was filled with water. And when all Moab heard that the sovereigns had come up to fight against them, all who were able to bear arms and older were gathered, and they stood at the border. That means grandma and grandpa. Well, not grandma, but grandpa's out there. Grandpa's ready for that action. And they rose up early in the morning, and the sun was shining on the water, and the Moabites saw the water on the other side as red as blood. Oh, interesting. And they said, This is blood. The sovereigns have indeed struck swords and have killed one another, and now Moab to the spoil. Ha ha! And they came to the camp of Israel, and Israel rose up and struck the Moabites, so that they fled before them. And striking, they struck the Moabites. Wow, that was very descriptive. I like your descriptions. And they broke down the cities, and each man threw a stone at every good piece of land and filled it. And they stopped up all the fountains of water, and cut down all the good trees, until only the stones of Kir Harosheth was left. And the slingers went round and struck it. And when the sovereigns of Moab saw that the battle was too strong for him, he took with him 700 men who drew swords to break through the sovereign of Edom, but they could not. Then he took his eldest son, who could have reigned in his place, and offered him. I can't with people sometimes. Then took his eldest son, who would have reigned in his place, and offered him as an ascending offering upon the wall. Man. I mean, I guess, like when all else fails, you're willing to do anything. But bro, what? An ascending offering requires it to be burnt. That's, you don't just kill it and put it out there. You're burning it. Anyway, and there was great wrath against Israel, and they left him and returned to the land. That just, man, that's crazy. That's crazy. And a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets cried out to Elisha, saying, Your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that your servant feared Yahweh, and the lender has come to take my 2 sons to be his slaves. And Elijah said to her, What shall I do for you? Inform me, what do you have in the house? And she said, Your female servant has none at all in this house except a pot of oil. And he said, Go, borrow vessels from everywhere, from all your neighbors, empty vessels. Do not get a few. And when you have come in, you shall shut the door behind you and your sons. Then pour it into all those vessels, and set aside the filled ones. And she went from him and shut the door behind her and her sons, who brought the vessels to her, and she poured it out. And it came to be, when the vessels were filled, that she said to her son, Bring me another vessel. But he said to her, There is not another vessel. And the oil ceased. So she went and informed the man of Elohim, and he said, Go, sell the oil and pay your debt, and you and your sons live on the rest. And it came to be on a day that Elisha went to Shunem, where there was a prominent woman, and she took hold of him to eat some food. And it came to be, as often as he passed by, that he turned in there to eat some food. And she said to her husband, Look, I know that this is a set-apart man of Elohim, who passes by us continually. Please, let us make a small upper room on the wall, and let us put a bed for him there, and a table, and a chair, and a lampstand. And it shall be, whenever he comes to us, let him turn in there. And it came to be on a day that he came there, and he turned in the upper room, and lay down there. And he said to Gehazi, his servant, Call the Shunammite woman. So he called her, and she stood before him. And he said to him, Please say to her, Look, you have gone to all this trouble for us. What is there to be done for you? Should I speak on your behalf to the sovereign, or to the commander of the army? And she answered, I am dwelling among my own people. And he said, What then is to be done for her? And the Gehazi answered, Well, she has no son, and her husband is old. And he said, Call her. So he called her, and she stood in the doorway. And he said, About this appointed time next year, you shall embrace a son. About this appointed time. What are the appointed times? Leviticus 23. Don't forget that. Those are your appointed times. Next year, you shall embrace a son. And she said, No, my master, man of Elohim, do not lie to your female servant. And the woman conceived, and bore a son when the appointed time had come. And when Elijah had spoken to her, and the child grew, and it came to be on a day that he went out to his father to the reapers, and he said to his father, My head, my head. And he said to his servant, Take him to his mother. So he took him and brought him to his mother, and he sat on her knees till noon, and died. Oh, that's so sad. And she went up and laid him on the bed of the man of Elohim, and shut the door on him, and went out. And she called to her husband, and said, Please, send me one of the young men and one of the donkeys, so that I hurry to the man of Elohim and return. And he said, Why are you going to him today? It is neither the new moon nor the Sabbath. Interesting. Why would she go to him on the new moon? Oh, because maybe that's an appointed time. Oh, wow. Why is she going to him on the Sabbath? Probably because he's the only one who's preaching the word of God. Right? These, again, as we talked about in the last video, this stuff right here, he's probably the only one that's talking about this stuff right here. Anyway. And she said, It is well. And she saddled the donkey and said to her servant, Drive and go. Do not slow down, except I speak to you. And she went and came to the man of Elohim at Mount Carmel. And it came to be, when the man of Elohim saw her at a distance, that he said to his servant Gehazi, See, the Shunammite woman. Please run now to meet her, and say to her, It is well. Is it well with you? Is it well with your husband? Is it well with the child? And she answered, It is well. She came to the man of Elohim at the hill, and she took hold of him by the feet, but Gehazi came near to push her away. But the man of Elohim said, Leave her alone, for her being is bitter in her, and Yahuwah has hidden it from me, and has not revealed it to me. And she said, Did I ask a son of my master? Did I not say, Do not deceive me? And he said to Gehazi, Gird up your loins, and take my staff in your hand, and go, right now. When you meet anyone, do not greet him, and when anyone greets you, do not answer him. And you shall lay my staff on the face of the child. And the mother of the child said, As Yahuwah lives, and as your being lives, I do not leave you. And he rose and followed her. And Gehazi went on ahead of them, and laid the staff on the face of the child. But there was no voice, and there was no hearing. So he went back to meet him, and reported to him, saying, The child has not awakened. And Elisha came to the house, and saw the child was dead, lying on his bed. And he went in, and shut the door behind the two of them, and prayed to Yahuwah. And he went up and lay on the child, and put his mouth on his mouth, and his eyes on his eyes, and his hands on his hands, and stretched him out on the child, and stretched himself out on the child, and the flesh of the child became warm. And he returned and walked back and forth in the house, then went up and stretched himself out on him, and the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes. It's very interesting. Also, Elisha's like, I want a double portion of your spirit. I'm pretty sure everything that we've covered so far, Elijah was doing the same, did all that stuff too. And he returned and walked back and forth. Oh, yeah, we sneezed 7 times. And he called Gehazi and said, Call this Shunammite. So he called her, and she came in to him, and he said, Pick up your son. Then she went in and fell at his feet, and bowed herself to the ground, and picked up her son, and went out. And Elisha returned to Gilgal, and the scarcity of food was in the land. The scarcity of food was in the land. This happens a lot. And it's all because people aren't paying attention to what they're supposed to be doing. God's like, all right, you ain't gonna get no rain. And the sons of the prophets were sitting before him, and he said to his servant, Put on the large pots, and cook stew for the sons of the prophets. And one went out to the field to gather plants, and found a wild vine, and gathered wild cucumbers from it, filling the skirt of his garment, and came and sliced them into the pot of stew, though they did not know what they were. Then they served it to the men to eat, and it came to be, as they were eating the stew, that they cried out and said, O man of Elohim, there is death in the pot. And they were unable to eat it. And he said, Then bring some flour and he put it into the pot and said, "Serve it to the people to eat." And there was no evil matter in the pot. Sorry, I'm just confused about this cucumber. I wonder if they just mean like regular flour, if like there's a special flour, like like a actual flour. Now a man came from Baal Shalisha and brought the man of Elohim bread of the first fruits, 20 loaves of barley bread of the first fruits. Man, there's a lot talking about the appointed times here. 20 loaves of barley bread and newly ripened grain in his knapsack. And he said, "Give it to the people to eat." And his servant said, "What? Do I set this before 100 men? And he said, "Give it to the people to eat. For thus said Yahuwah, eat and have some left over." Boy, God is good, let me tell you. And he set it before them, and they ate and had some left over, according to the word of Yahuwah. Isn't that so good? That's so good. And Naaman, commander of the army of the sovereign of Aram, was a great man in the eyes of his master, and highly respected, because by him Yahuwah had given deliverance to Aram, and he was a brave man, but leprous. And the Armenians had gone out on raids and had brought back captive a young girl from the land of Israel. And she served the wife of Naaman. And she said to her mistress, "If only my master were with the prophets who is in Shomeron, then he would recover him of his leprosy." And Naaman went in and reported to his master, saying, Thus and thus spoke the girl who is from the land of Israel. And the sovereign of Aram said, "Go, enter, and let me send a letter to the sovereign of Israel." And he went and took with him 10 talents of silver and 6,000 6,000 pieces of gold. I think a talent also 70 pounds, so 700 pounds of silver, and 10 changes of garments. And he brought the letter to the sovereign of Israel, which said, "And now, when this letter comes to you, see, I have sent Naaman my servant to you, so that you shall recover him of his leprosy." And it came to be, when the sovereign of Israel read the letter, that he tore his garments and said, "Am I Elohim, to kill and keep alive? And this man sends a man to me to recover him of his leprosy. For consider now, and see how he is seeking an occasion with me." Basically, he's like, "Yeah, you sent him here for me to him? Yeah, you're crazy. You're just trying to set me up so that way when he dies, you could be like, wham-boo." And it came to be, when Elijah, the man of Elohim, heard that the sovereign of Israel had torn his garments, that he sent to the sovereign, saying, "Why have you torn your garments? Please let him come to me, so that he knows that there is a prophet in Israel." So Naaman came in with his horse and chariot, and he stood at the entrance of the house of Elisha. And Elisha sent a messenger to him, saying, "Go, and you shall wash 7 times in the Jordan, that your flesh might be restored to you and be clean." But Naaman became wroth, and went away, and said, "See, I said to myself, he would certainly come out to me, and stand and call on the name of Yahuwah his Elohim, and wave his hand over the place, and recover the leprosy. Are not the Abana and the Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Could I not wash in them and be clean?" And he turned and went away in rage. How foolish! How foolish! And his servants came near and spoke to him and said, "My father, if the prophet had spoken to you a great matter, would you not have done it? How much more then when he says to you, Wash and be clean?" Then he went down and dipped 7 times in the Jordan, according to the word of the man of Elohim, and his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. And he returned to the man of Elohim, he and all his company, and came and stood before him, and said, "See, Now I know that there is no Elohim in all the earth except in Israel. And now, please take a gift from your servant. But he said, As Yahuwah lives, before whom I stand, I do not accept it. And he pressed on him to accept it, but he refused. Then Naaman said, If not, please let your servant be given 2 mule loads of earth, for no longer is your servant going to make an ascending offering and slaughtering to the mighty ones, but to Yahuwah. Yahuwah grant forgiveness to your servant in this matter. When my master goes into the house of Rimmon to worship there, and he leans on my hand, and I bow down in the house of Rimmon, when I bow down in the house of Rimmon, Yahuwah, please grant forgiveness to your servant in this matter. And he said to him, Go in peace. And he went from him some distance. And Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of Elohim, said, Look, my master has spared Naaman the Aramean, while not receiving from his hand what he brought. But as Yahuwah lives, I shall run after him and take whatever from him. And Gehazi pursued Naaman, and when Naaman saw him running after him, he came down from the chariot to meet him and said, Is there peace? And he said, Peace. My master has sent me, saying, Look, even now 2 young men of the sons of the prophets have come to me from the mountains of Ephraim. Please give them a talent of silver and 2 changes of garments. And Naaman said, Please accept 2 talents. And he urged him, and bound 2 talents of silver in 2 bags with 2 changes of garments, and handed them to 2 of his servants. And they bear them ahead of him. And when he came to the high place, he took them from their hand and stored them away in the house, and let the men go, and they went away. And they went. And he went in and stood before his master. And Elisha said to him, Where did you go, Gehazi? And he said, Your servant did not go anywhere. I didn't do anything. That wasn't me. I was just in the bathroom for a really long time. But he said to him, Did not my heart go with you when the man turned back from his chariot to meet you? Is it time to accept silver and to accept garments and olive trees and vineyards and sheep and cattle and male and female servants? So let the leprosy of Naaman cling to you and your descendants forever. And he went out from him as leprous as snow. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. And if somebody else says no, that doesn't mean you get to say yes. Yeah. Sometimes things just aren't for you. Was it really worth it? Was leprosy forever worth 2 talents of silver and 2 changes of clothes? How much do you want to bet? I'll bet you $1,000 right now that Joker went to the Jordan and dipped himself 7 times in there and nothing happened. I guarantee he did. Be the first thing I did. Be like, it worked for Buddy, maybe it'll work for me. May Yahuwah bless you and guard you. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and show favor to you. Yahuwah lift up his face upon you and give you peace. Thus they shall put my name on the children of Israel, and I myself shall bless them. Shalom, shalom.